This podcast is part of the Frederick Podcast Network. Learn more at listenfrederick.com.
That's number one. You kind of reset your
Painful, tender to the touch. May also
same shoulder length, and the other.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Real Health Podcast with Brandy and Amir. I am Dr. Amir Rashidian, a chiropractor, and Brandy Rashidian is my beautiful other half co-host, and what else? Everything.
That's probably enough for now.
Yeah. But thank you for joining us for this episode. Remember that the Real Health Podcast is brought to you by the Frederick Podcast Network, and it can be found on listenfrederick.com along with YouTube and Spotify and iTunes and everywhere else you like to find your podcast. We always appreciate a like and a comment and a subscription wherever you can. No pressure. We just appreciate that you tune in and listen because this information is valuable and important. We've got a lot to talk about today. Just in case it's the first time you're watching or listening, what we do is we take the latest information in mainstream media regarding health and wellness, and what we give you is our perspective from a drugless, non-surgical solution to some of these health problems, and we analyze it. We look into it. We dig deep. We do some of the research. Our hope and our purpose is that we help you with this information so you can feel better, get stronger, live longer, and feel younger. And summer is here.
I think we look different since
do.
we recorded last. We had a few weeks off because Sean was vacationing out of the country. And so
we missed you.
Yeah, we did. It's nice to have you back. So we had a few things pre-recorded. We had worked ahead knowing he was going to be gone, so we didn't have a big lapse in our sessions. But since then, you've shaved your beard and I cut my hair off.
Oh yeah, forgot about that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we look a little different. I don't think we sound different. I think we sound the same.
No. Although as you age, remember my voice is supposed to get higher and yours is supposed to go lower.
I don't age. You age.
Yeah, that's true.
I've stopped.
Well, speaking of aging, we got a pretty cool article about back discs and what happens when they wear out. But before that, I think everybody's been so preoccupied with the war.
Yeah,
which,
we've gotten a lot of questions.
Seems to have ended as of today.
Maybe.
It's funny because both sides declared victory. I don't know if anyone ever wins in war.
When there's casualties, there's no one's really winning.
So most of you know I'm from Iran. So I grew up there. I lived before the revolution. I lived through that revolution in 1979, and a few years after, about 6 years after the revolution. And so I feel like I lived in two different worlds in Iran, where it went from this modern, chic, fun, opulous, free country, where basically it felt like you live in Europe.
Yeah.
And in fact, every summer, my dad would take us to Europe for vacation, and we'd spend a month. And people don't take month-long vacations in the U.S., but that's what you do in other places. You're like, oh, well, how long are you going? Month or 2 months? That's the question.
Yeah.
Here we go. You going for 3 days or a week?
Yeah. Very different. We do not know how to relax. They also take naps in Iran.
That's very true.
I mean, everything shuts down. That's really nice.
It's nice.
So
yeah, but
it's unfortunate. There's not the freedom that you guys once had.
Now, Iran also has a 6-day work week.
Yep.
U.S. has a 5-day work week.
Yeah.
Although some people work 7 days a week. But Iran, they're only closed on Fridays, which is ridiculous because Saturday's their first day of the week and Sunday's the second day of the week, and the rest of the world is closed on those 2 days.
Yes.
That gives them only 4 days to do international business.
Right.
No wonder their economy is suffering. That alone is bad for the economy, let alone everything else they're doing. But so being in Iran, I remember being 5 years old, and we got in a car. We're in this busy city street, and we're going to a birthday party for one of my friends who was turning 6, and so had the birthday present. I'm sitting in the back of my mom and dad's Datsun. I don't know if anybody knows what a Datsun is.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically what a what Nissan used to be called is now called Datsun was, sorry, I got distracted. Someone tried to walk in. Datsun became Nissan. Anyways, middle class car.
Yeah.
And I'm in the back of this car. We come around the corner and there's gridlock traffic, and then batons start flying and tear gas was thrown, and just all kinds of fighting. People getting injured and hurt, and the police are there. There's rioting, and I actually saw someone get stabbed. I was a little kid,
very scary.
5 years old, and it's not what a 5-year-old should see. I'll never forget it. My parents kept saying, hide, get down, don't look. But I wanted to see, so I looked, and I saw this guy walking with a knife in him, and I won't give you gory details, but he took a few steps and fell. And then I stopped looking. I didn't want to see anymore. But I'll remember that forever.
It's a hard
And
thing as a
I can
kid.
think. And so you were saying that the
Yeah.
rate of anxiety has increased in Israel.
Yeah, actually, in insomnia, it says that it's actually quadrupled. It's gone from 4% to 20%. And nearly half have reported chronic sleep problems, which of course attributed to ongoing anxiety and air raid alerts. And of course now, further fear of direct attacks and whatnot. And I'm sure, I mean, that was, coming from Israel, and I'm sure there's experience of that on both sides. I don't know how you couldn't. The sad thing is a lot of times we forget we are looking at the government, not thinking about the people. And I think, we don't love the Iranian regime, right now. Clearly, we don't go back right now. But the people are amazing, and we have family there. And so, yeah, it's been a tough thing to watch for sure.
It's nice. And most people in Iran speak a degree of English.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to start studying English in 6th grade when you're in Iran through high school. So they want everybody to know English. Medical
Right.
schools are taught in English in Iran. Everybody speaks perfect English. All medical reports are written in English
Yeah.
over there. So whenever I have a patient that I'm co-managing with someone in Iran, their reports are all in English, which is
Yeah.
great. They're very educated. Iran's probably one of the only countries in the Middle East where women are allowed to go to college. Other countries, I believe, they're limited as to how much education women are allowed. So even though women are mistreated, they have certain rights. I think there's certain countries in the Middle East where women aren't allowed to drive, but in Iran, you can have a woman taxi driver.
I don't know why anyone would want to drive there. That's scary, but
Do you know about 10 years ago, they passed a law that said now women are allowed to rollerblade.
wow.
So
Thank goodness for that.
that's
It's
another
the
thing.
small victories.
Another thing I'm not too keen on is I'm just not good on anything slippery or wheels.
Didn't we have rollerblades when we first?
We still do.
Do we? Oh,
They're somewhere.
we can't find them, and mine would not fit anymore. Not after 3 kids.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we tried that. I don't think we were very good.
No.
Roller skating, I'm really good at. Rollerblading, not so much.
Not so much. I can ride a bike.
Yeah, that's impressive.
I used to do jumps and stuff on BMX bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I won't try that anymore.
Please don't.
Yeah, those days are gone. Talking about insomnia, air raid sirens started right after the revolution because I guess Saddam Hussein thought that Iran didn't have a government, and our military wasn't organized, and they said we can attack Iran and take all the oil-rich land for Iraq. Well, Iran had put all the fighter pilots in the prisons because they were all their allegiance was to the Shah, and the ones who didn't escape, they were locked up, and I think they were going to execute them. In fact, I believe Iran executed like 5,000 political prisoners
That's crazy.
just because of their beliefs. Unreal, and the number might be higher than that. But anyways, so they needed people to fly these planes. So they went to prison and they pulled them out. They said, "Will you defend your country?" And they said, under one condition: if you fly the old flag and play the old national anthem one more time, we'll defend the country. So they all lined up saluted to the old flag, which has the sun and the lion. You know, the campaign was called Rising Lion. Now, it's actually a biblical thing, the lion. That's a prophecy about biblical prophecy about this very war.
Yeah.
Has a lion in it somewhere, and I can't remember exactly how. But also, Rising Lion refers to the old sun and lion on the flag coming back. But that's the flag they put up. These fighter pilots saluted,
Right.
listened to the national anthem, and they got in their planes and defended Iran. Now, just like this war, Iran declared victory after 8 years, but all it was is a ceasefire. It was a stalemate. They couldn't get anything. It was awful. You know, the Iraqi soldiers would come in and lay in minefields. And then when the Iranian military would push them out, the minefields would still be there. So they couldn't figure out how to clear the minefields. And so my uncle, you met him, Uncle Mehmed, he was in the front lines for 6 months. Even though he was in the Air Force, they put him on the grounds, sent him to the front lines for 6 months. And oh my gosh, during those 6 months, every time the phone rang, we were certain he had been
horrified.
killed. Thankfully, he didn't, but he did get a lot of, because Iraq was using chemical warfare. And so he got a lot of chemicals in his lungs, and that's why he's disabled, because he coughs so
struggles.
much. He's having trouble with his lungs. But he told the story. He said when they got to the minefield, they tried to send dogs out on the minefield to find paths, and the dogs wouldn't step on the field. They would run to the edge and stop. So they got horses.
Smart.
Horses wouldn't do it. They got donkeys. They would form 2 lines of soldiers, and they would slap this donkey and get it to run. And expect the donkey to keep running out in the minefield, and the dog would skid to a halt at the edge of the minefield and stop. Like this animal knew that it can't walk out there. So what they did next was, and they didn't do it with the party that my uncle was with, but they would go to villages and get 13-year-old boys, 12, 13, 14-year-old boys, teenagers, and they would give them a key, a metal key. And they would put on a string and hang it around their neck. They'd say, this is the key to heaven. So if you go and die in the war, you'll go straight to heaven. And so they got these little kids, teenagers, young teenagers. They would line them in a row and then have them walk out on the minefield. And one by one, they would blow up. I mean, that's a crime.
Oh, 100%.
I can't think of a crime bigger than that. To take these kids from their families, and they would pay the families, and they would say, oh, you should be honored that your son went and died unnecessarily.
It's just a shame.
And there was a park out across the street from our home in Sari. So we lived in Sari, which is up north by the Caspian Sea. So very little war activity there until they turned that park into a POW camp. So they put prisoners of war in that camp. And every once in a while, every couple of weeks, one of them would escape. And bullets would be flying through. I don't know why they would be shooting at some probably unarmed prisoner running around, but there would be bullets flying through the streets, and we'd all have to hide. Actually, we still have a bullet hole in like the concrete on the wall at the house. I probably showed you.
Yeah.
When we were in Iran, and but that was anxiety, because we'd all run home, and we'd hide behind like solid walls. So if a bullet came in, it wouldn't hit us. And we just sit there and wait for the shooting to stop. But then there'd be a ring. We had a gate and a little orchard of orange trees in front of the house. And then we had a fence and a gate. Well, they would buzz. They would ring the bell. And we had to buzz them in. And we don't know if it's the Iraqi prisoner that's ringing to try to come into our house, or if it's the Iranian soldiers looking for the Iraqi prisoner. And so you had to open the door. You had to open the gate and let them in. And these soldiers would pour into your house.
I guess ring was not a thing then.
No camera. No. We had this thing, they called it the FM, where you could pick up, it was like a little phone.
Yeah.
You pick up and you could
It's
talk
like
to
a
the
little intercom.
You could talk to, but they wouldn't answer. They'd be like, yes, can I help you? But we were afraid to like even leave, like, because there's still bullets flying. So we just like somebody would run up and push the button to open it, and soldiers would pour in to search your house and go search the roof, and then they would leave. But they're disrespectful. They're not like
Yeah, not kind.
military in the U.S. Like they respect citizens. you're dirt to them in this country. I mean, it's not right and it's not good. But we went from being this prestigious country that where when we would travel through Europe and they would see the Iranian emblem on your
It meant
passport,
something.
the sun and the lion with a sword, I mean, they would respect you. They'd move you to the front of the line. They would treat you like your kings. Not anymore. And so, anyways, so that's my story about Iran and the anxiety we faced, and
Yeah.
just trying to leave was another issue. Just hoping to be able to get out. They wouldn't. Just like recently when Israel was fighting Iran, Iranian government shut down all the banks and wouldn't let people access their money.
Yeah.
And they said you're only allowed a few gallons of gas. So people were running out of gas on the highways,
Yeah.
trying to evacuate the city, and they're camping on the side of the highway. They're still doing that today. So
It's just ridiculous. So,
talk about insomnia and anxiety.
no kidding. So we're of course prayerful that there will, along with this, could possibly be a regime change. So we're going to keep praying for that and hoping that something good comes of this. That
At the same time, we're just so grateful to be in this great country.
for sure.
We're both U.S. citizens, proud to be. And I hope those who haven't been outside of the country get to go and see how great this country is, because you won't know how great it is until you step outside
It's true.
and see what everything else. We've been through Europe, we've been through Asia and Far East too. We went to Indonesia and all of that. And there's no place better than here, guys. So
No place like home. That's what Dorothy says.
that's right.
Very
Kansas.
true.
That's Kansas. That's like the Far East.
It feels like a different world
Maybe
for
it's-
sure.
Yeah. it's the Middle East of the
It's a
U.S.
little.
So
All right.
you want to dive into one of these articles?
Yeah, let's see what we can dive into here.
Okay. Well, there's three things here that are kind of chiropractic related, and why don't I just do one of them that's not going to take a lot of time because we want to keep this short. But the very next episode, we're going to hit the other two, so tune in for that. But let me just do this short one. And listen, our job isn't to be biased. Our job isn't to sway you or give you, make you think the way we think or any of that stuff, which is why, and Brandy and I actually had a little bit of a debate as to whether we should even talk about this article, because it's a negative article. It's negative toward chiropractic, and I'm a chiropractor. But listen, guys, stuff happens, and people do get injured. So I'm going to read it to you, and I'll talk about it and explain it to you, because it's news, it's information, and should be heard. So this title article, it's a very derogatory title. It says, chiropractor tears woman's artery while cracking her neck. So right off the bat, we don't use the word cracking. So if someone's cracking someone's neck, that already implies that there's trauma being done. Cracking is a violent act. It should be a precise, gentle adjustment. So it says Las Vegas mom, Carissa Klund, ended up in the ICU and was bedridden for weeks after a chiropractic injury. A woman says her chiropractor tore an artery in her neck during a routine adjustment, causing her to be bedridden in constant pain. Carissa Klund, 41, was regularly seeing a chiropractor after struggling with back pain following the removal of breast implants that she said had made her ill. So she removed the implants and she started having back pain as a result of that. She said, my muscles got really tight. It was such a huge surgery. The muscles tightened. It was really painful. She was saying this to Daily Mail, which is where this news came from. And she said her sessions with the chiropractor were helpful, until a substitute chiropractor stepped in during a November 2022 appointment and cracked her neck. As soon as it happened, I knew something was wrong. You do hear a crack anyway when you get an adjustment. Not always, not necessarily. She says, but I knew something had gone wrong. There was a pain in my neck. I got home and felt like I was going to throw up. A few weeks after the appointment, Klunt says I was seeing things and blacking out. Her husband insisted she go to the emergency room. She should have gone to the emergency room right away, not weeks later, where a CAT scan diagnosed Klunt with a vertebral artery dissection. And I'll show you what that artery looks like. It's a tear in the artery that runs along the spine. And as the Cleveland Clinic explains, it can affect blood flow, putting you at risk for life-threatening complications. So I have a guest. His name is Charlie. Sometimes we call it Charlene, depends on
Who we're talking to.
Yes. So you see these red lines right here that go through the spine. Can they see this, Sean? That looks okay. Those are the vertebral arteries. So they're on either side of the spine. They actually go through the spine. They're not outside of the spine. The carotid arteries are outside the spine. The vertebral arteries are inside. That's why they're at higher risk. Now, you think about this. The way God designed the neck is that there would be slack in there. Otherwise, anytime you turn your head, you would block off those arteries, at least one of them. Because when you turn your head to one side or the other, you're stretching one side and compressing one side. So there's enough slack in them for 90 degrees of turning. So for a chiropractor to tear that artery, that means this chiropractor, whether he was inexperienced or overzealous or incompetent, they must have turned too much, because you shouldn't have to turn that far. If you're doing a precise adjustment, first thing you do is you take x-rays. Then you draw lines and make measurements, and you know exactly what bone needs to move and which bone doesn't need to move. Also, when you take those x-rays, if there's calcification or hardening of those arteries, you'll see it on x-ray. And you'll realize, hey, these areas shouldn't be adjusted because that artery's hardened and we don't want to stretch it. So we've been in practice 25 years. We don't have that. I don't personally know of anyone who's ever had this injury. And now, we have had many doctors in our practice work with us. We currently have 2 other doctors that work with us. And you look at across the nation, there's millions of adjustments being performed every single day. So if this was a very common thing,
We would hear about it a lot.
yeah, we'd hear about it more.
And our malpractice would be much higher.
Malpractice insurance would be a lot higher.
Yeah.
So the average chiropractor pays about $1,000 to $1,200 a year in malpractice insurance for a $3 million coverage. You know, a medical doctor pays 12 times that for the same $3 million coverage. Surgeons pay a lot more. OBGYNs pay probably over $100,000 of malpractice insurance annually. So ours is 1% of what an OBGYN pays. So clearly, there isn't much risk. Calculations were done. The odds of tearing an artery during a chiropractic adjustment is equivalent to being hit by lightning twice in the same day. So mathematicians clearly have a lot of free time on their hands. They sit down and calculate these things. But it's a very real thing. And so someone did the wrong thing, made a mistake, and hurt someone terribly. And that's just why you have to make sure you're going to the correct chiropractor.
100%.
Clint was promptly transferred to the ICU of another hospital. They said I could have had a stroke. If I hadn't gone to the hospital, I would have had a stroke. The former fitness and wellness advocate struggled for the first month, explaining I was pretty much in bed. I was exhausted, sleeping for 17 hours a day. I needed help walking. I was in constant pain. And nearly 3 years later, she says she's doing well now, but it's still a long recovery process. So thank God she's doing well. Thank God she recovered from this. It should have never happened. But there you have it. It's rare, but it's possible. Do you know that 7,000 plus people die of taking over-the-counter painkillers every single year? 7,000. So that you think about it, we take risks with everything, you know, and you.
It's just our society downplays certain risks and highlights other risks.
Yeah.
Like if you want to know why those risk factors are so advertised for chiropractors versus what we downplay in all of our pharmaceutical ads, what the risk factors are. We don't talk about those things. We don't always in medical offices give out the risk factors for medication and whatnot, or vaccines, which we're supposed to.
Yep.
And so if you wonder why that takes place, you have to begin to look at it and ask those questions.
Yeah.
And a great documentary to watch so you can see what that background is. It's a movie called Doctored, and you can get it on YouTube.
Sean, can you put the link to Doctor
And I think
below?
we've talked about it before because we watched it with our team recently. And I just think it's a fantastic historical information on, how chiropractic came onto the scene, how the AMA kind of, cold-shouldered chiropractic, if you will. So it gives a lot of that basis, which then will give you an understanding of why these kinds of things are advertised, and it's made to seem, and we don't ever want anyone injured, but they make it seem like it's common, and it's not a common thing. And so it then creates this fear in people, and then they won't go to a chiropractor, which is so sad because it is still one of the safest treatments and modalities that is in healthcare today. But we don't want to talk about it because it
100%.
doesn't fit into the referral
Yeah.
network. It doesn't make
I
the
mean,
major medical model money.
I would suggest watch the videos we have on our YouTube channel that show some of our adjustments. You'll notice we don't twist the head all the way around. It doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah.
And these bones in the neck, the first one weighs less than an ounce. It doesn't take force to move it. You just have to position it in the right place and move it just slightly, and it goes into place. It needs to be gentle and comfortable, and adjustments should not be painful. Now, anyways, we'll stop with that. But X-rays should be done as well to rule things out. Now, if someone's pregnant or if it's an infant, well, you modify your technique. You don't use the same technique because you don't have X-rays. So you need to do something that's 100% safe when you don't have X-rays on someone.
Right.
And that's someone who has to have been trained in pediatrics, who has to have been trained in obstetrics, and that chiropractor is fully qualified to deliver a safe adjustment to the neck, not crack the neck, but adjust it.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us. Hopefully that was helpful. Thanks for listening to my stories about Iran, and take care and tune in next because we're going to talk a little more about the spine and chiropractic.
See you next time.
This podcast is part of the Frederick Podcast Network. Learn more at listenfrederick.com.